Hello,
Hello, Hasina. How are you?
I'm good, Chaitali. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good and very excited that we are starting this podcast together and with a great intention in our field of psychotherapy and mental health.
Yeah, I was excited while you brought this idea. Let's do this. Let's talk. That idea of let's talk itself was so fascinating for me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key element missing in our lives today. That let's talk authentically, let's talk openly, let's
Yeah.
bring in that courage with no shame and engage.
Recently, I read somewhere, because there's lack of expression, we are having a lot of depression. So I found it so valuable, which is what is happening, right? We don't have enough
True.
room for conversation, healthy conversations, uh,
True.
and we
And
don't
it's
have
a
room
beautiful
for,
rhyme when you said lack of expression creates depression. That uh,
yeah, and
these
connection and expression. These two are lacking authentic expressions and connections. Either we are scared to connect into or express what we really feel like, or we have judgments, or we have our defenses.
true, true, are and also the other person in the relationship or when we are having a conversation. So, two defenses that much more harder to break, right?
Absolutely.
Great. So, why don't you introduce to the audience who are you?
Who am I? What a powerful question. I I think that question is a stimulant for me to become a professional today in this field. Discovering who I am, what is my purpose here, and why I'm behaving the way I am. You know, there were a lot of issues going on in my personal life, and I was working as a sociologist because that was my first career. I thought sociology is something that I would like to do in my life, talk about society, deal with the outside world. And eventually I realized there's so much inside that is untapped, and that's why I feel suffocated. And then I started discovering who I am. And then I thought through transaction analysis, that is my therapy base, foundation of my psychotherapy. So I did my certified transaction analysis from International TA Association. TA means Transactional Analysis Association. I did my MSc Psychology, MA Sociology, all of that. Uh, but I found a little bit of who I am through transaction analysis. And I found much more, uh, what do I say? Not only discovering who I am, but playing out in life, acting out in life through psychodrama.
Mm.
It was these two powerful disciplines gave me a vision and purpose for life that you can do and be so much in life about. It's not only about my own discovery of who I am and who others are or what the world is. It's about having a perspective or owning different perspectives around the world, looking at the outside world as not as enemy, rather seeing everybody as part of me, everything and everybody, I would say, all the species, including all the species. So that discovery, even today, I am learning after being in this field for around 2 decades. Even today, I am a student, and I think I will lifelong be a student as long as I am being with my clients. They teach me a lot, like how our children teach us, our clients also teach us quite a lot. My students teach me a lot. So I am blessed for being who I am and for doing what I do.
Thank you. And that's so awesome. Um, yeah, even I have been in this field close to 2 decades now. And I have done my bachelor's in psychology and master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. And from then on, I've been working on an NGO in an NGO in Chennai, the Banyan. And now currently I'm residing in Doha, Qatar. And ever since I've been here, I've been working in school as a school counselor. Eventually, introduction to psychodrama and then transactional analysis through you brought in a lot of anchoring in me as a person and also as a professional. I consider myself as quite wild, and people do say, give me that as a feedback. But to stay on to that wild, the power that I got was from psychodrama and transactional analysis in the journey of finding who I am and what I want to do and who I want to be. I would say both these streams gave me a lot of anchoring and supported me in being what I want to be and how I want to be, even if it doesn't fall under normal norms of the society and, so to say, the haves and the shoulds and the must. Having said that, those two streams also help me in working as a therapist with with clients. And like you said, I'm also blessed. I feel blessed, and each day when I am also working with the clients, I tell them that, this was inspirational for me, because the all about therapy is that you be authentic, and that's where your creativity also comes up. And when you can see the authenticity in conversation, that shows a lot of courage, and you can immediately feel how it falls so good on your nervous system when,
Yeah.
a stranger who's not so related to your life on an everyday basis tells you that, yeah, I felt this with you, which may be good, not good, unquote unquote, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
And the fact that you still can carry on that conversation is just an inspiration for me, through psychotherapy and transactional analysis and psychodrama. So my next question to you is, what's the purpose of having this conversation?
That's a very good question, I would say, or rather a topic for conversation. When you say question, it feels like, okay, you're asking me and I'm answering. Rather, let's um, see when you're saying like how we started talking about expression as children or as growing up or in our lives, we always want to express who we are, to tell what we like, to be heard, to be seen in us in our whole format. Yeah, and not only in the external appearance, but to be heard by my ideas, to be seen in the way I perform and the way I am, which used to happen quite a lot while we had a joint family system in our culture, specifically coming from an Asian culture or an Indian culture, if you want to put it like that. I come from a South Indian culture. The concept of many people living together under a roof had the privilege of, if one person is busy, there are other people who can hear you. And if
Mm.
the household is much more open and ready to listen and be there, that is fascinating. I don't say all the joint family system was so well and all that. I'm not favoring one to the other, but I'm saying that was an opportunity then.
You're
And
saying there was an
people,
availability for people to have a conversation. If not with one, then you have an option to go to another
yeah,
one.
yeah. So, but later, as people started migrating and for their own existential requirements, people started moving, education requirement, migrating countries, we started to form a nuclear family where both parental figures started working, which is quite, everybody has this conversation. Then people started feeling lonely. And then there is this birth of virtual era where social media is there. We talk virtually quite a lot. Even now, I and you are talking virtually, which is a blessing that we have this opportunity. Yet there is limitation for us to come together if you want to have a sensory experience of each other. And I think at least if ideal is not available, then make the available ideal. That is what my supervisor, PK Saru, would say. So making the available ideal, I thought, is one way that we could talk. We don't have to be scared of talking and expressing.
Mm.
Yeah. And that motivated me to come and talk. Yeah.
Yeah, so my purpose of doing this conversation with you is that you have a rich knowledge, a rich background in terms of psychotherapy and practitioner, and also you are connected to transactional analysis internationally. uh, and you bring a rich body. And knowing you, I know how it's the connection and the work is so human, and you are not rigid. There is flexibility, and that allowed me to propose that why don't we bring this to the world. Because this knowledge and us as therapists are quite hidden somewhere. The
Yeah.
topics are hidden, the conversations are hidden around it. People don't want to talk. People think that okay, talking means you will talk about sadness and problems means you're going back to sadness. Breaking those myths and making this information and knowledge that what mental health is, what therapy is. For example, today somebody asked me that I can't sleep. So what does therapy do when I can't sleep? Is it like medicine that you take medicine and therapy also works? I said no, it doesn't work that way. So that information is not available to people. And I guess it's important that when we can transcend this knowledge to the larger audience and they benefit out of it, and if they have to choose when to choose a therapist, how to choose a therapist, whom to be chosen as a therapist, and what will happen in therapy. So if people know this information, it is much more easier to access help. So making mental health service or therapy in that sense accessibility in terms of affordability and also in terms of effectivity. When you know the information, you can be effective the way you're choosing your path.
Yeah. 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 So your question is around how to choose a therapist. I didn't quite get the what were
Yeah.
you intending?
So let me begin with this. Who is a therapist?
Mhm. Who is a therapist? It's a very nice way of asking ourselves.
Mm.
I'm thinking, who am I as a therapist? And my work is more of co-creative approach where I and you are participants in the therapy space. Where I am not coming from a space of I know everything and about you, whatever you say, and I am going to tell you this is your problem, so you need to deal with this way. That's not what my
When you
approach.
say I, it means you are the therapist.
Yeah, I as a therapist, I know it's coming from a medical model.
Mm.
Yeah, and it is evolved profession from the West. We don't need to go into the history and all of that. But if I look at it from a approach of I and you are equal participants in the space. For example, if you are my client and I am a therapist, I have a lot of background of my life experiences, of the knowledge that I've learned, of the skills that I've developed as a professional, and also the person that I really am and my background, my ancestors, my belief systems, and whole of me is in the consulting room or the therapy room.
True.
Likewise, my client also brings whole of the client into the consulting room. How much of these two people are feeling safe and contained in the space to discover which part of the client is not seen or not known that needs to be seen and known. And that is why the issue is coming up. So if a client is bringing an issue and saying, this is what, like how you said, I'm not able to sleep. So let's explore which part of you is feeling the discomfort that your sleep is disturbed. So
Mm.
we are exploring some parts we really don't know. There is so much of not knowing that happens in the therapy space. So if I put it in one sentence, therapy is about discovering the unknown parts of ourselves, which is creating trouble because it wants to come out.
Where are these unknown parts?
They are in our psyche,
Mm.
in our implicit memories, in our unconscious memories. It's like giving birth, giving birth to these parts in the therapy room. And birthing process is not easy, right? It just comes with a lot of pain and a lot of difficulty. And
Mm,
sometimes I didn't realize I would have gone through so much pain to see this part of me. And
mm,
sometimes when I see the part of me, I feel surprised. Oh my God, is this what I went through? Is this what happened to me?
mm,
Yeah. Or is this what I perceived about me? So I might not realize what I perceived about me. So when my client is bringing all those parts into the room, I as therapist has also experienced something about that part in me as well. That doesn't mean I am going to tell this is what I am experiencing, but that's how we engage in our conversation and discover, okay, there are so many things that has happened in my life that is
mm.
disturbing for me.
When you say in my life means it's also in context of other people around you, right?
Yeah, it is. See, what is a person's life is I am born into a relationship, isn't it?
Mm,
I'm born into my mother's arm or my caretaker's arm. Our birth is in relationship to the other. And it is through the interaction between the caretaker and the child, there is some sense of belongingness that take place between both of them. So how much ever I say I am born free, I am born into another person's arms.
yeah, true.
There is an exchange of my existence is already decided by this other person
Mm,
until certain age that how I am supposed to grow well according
mm,
to that caretaker's perspective. So we are not really born free the way we think we are.
mm. I
And
think the reason I brought this question is because today there's so much emphasis, and when you speak to people, also they say, "Why do we talk about past? We should not talk about past." And it disturbs them when they have to say that it's because of somebody, uh, you are going through a problem. Yeah. So, like you said, when you're born into somebody's arms, you're not free.
no, and the other person, the caretaker, with a lot of good intention, has brought us up for to a certain age. And suddenly you don't discard them or dismiss them from your life. You have some sense of connection with that person. Maybe some parts of you might have been hidden in the process of growing up, in the process of adapting to circumstances. And those hidden parts we might not become aware of. And we may want to bring those parts later in our lives. And that birthing process becomes really difficult in later lives. We feel like we are betraying our parental values, parental.
When we come to therapy.
Yeah. In fact, we are not betraying, we're becoming much more grateful to all that we learned, all that they were with us. And we are discovering new ways of dealing with the present
More.
context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a beautiful way to put to somebody who says that I don't want to blame my parents. So you're not blaming, but you're just figuring out what got missed. Like
Yeah.
somebody told me today that I'm very introvert, but I want to be fun loving, I want to be entertaining. So that fun loving, entertaining, motivated person is missing somewhere. And through therapy, you bring that person out,
Yeah.
and let's see how that person is
Yeah.
supporting you in your day-to-day life.
And if you look at from the ancestors, whatever that is passed on, had a purpose.
Mm.
So if you, it's like, fish in the ocean. You can't take the fish outside saying that ocean is not helping the fish.
Yeah,
They both gel together. Without the ocean, there is no fish. Without the fish, there is no ocean,
absolutely.
right? It's the same in a family or in a society or amongst the species. One cannot live with the other without the other.
Mm. Mm.
So, how do we dance together in a healthy way? And knowing
True.
that in that, what happens is we need to accommodate different perspectives to live
Mm.
together, coexist together. And that is difficult because once you feel like, okay, this is how I want to live, and then we have grown in a certain way for a long period in our time, it's not easy to come together. So, we are learning some ways in therapy. How do we dance together?
So going back to a question, who a therapist is. So therapist in some ways not in some ways, in a lot of ways facilitates this process between the client and the therapist, uh, through the process of therapy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Through
Mm.
the process of discovering who this
And
person.
are there various other models of doing therapy?
Of course, there are umpteen models. There's no, I mean, it's a vast ocean. And because therapy has started from a Western approach, also religiously, if you look at every religion had a way of handling mental health through the scriptures.
True.
So some people still rely on that, which is absolutely okay. There's no harm in that. There are some other ways of traditional ways of dealing with, like, in the tribal context, people have their own ways of dealing their mental health.
Mm.
The
Mm.
folk dances, they were all ways of expressions of their issues that happens on a day-to-day life. So there was multiple ways of handling mental health issues in the Eastern culture, and in the Western culture. After Freud, it had started with many other different ways of looking at the unconscious, looking at the behavior, so many aspects. What I am thinking is, in the present context, we definitely need to translate these Western approaches that we already learned into our cultural requirement. And especially, we need to really, I feel, we need to really encourage community building, group work, because individual psychotherapy, like privatization of our trouble by one of social scientist Moray, talked about how we make our troubles private, and we are not
Yeah.
ready to talk about in public because of very obvious reasons. I'm saying in our culture, it is a privileged position to always have a private therapy. Yeah. So, how to make it affordable for people who are not really into intellectual and self actualization or discovery, but who cannot sleep, who wants to come and talk? So, can we talk? Can we express what we are feeling like? Can we express what I am being stopped from? So, having that space, sometimes we hold nature as a therapist, which in TA is echo transaction analysis, echo TA, which is becoming prominent now. I feel that's very good for our context.
It's going back to nature, right?
Yes. See, we didn't know nature was our therapist. But while we hold on to nature as a therapist, there are parts of us that we don't discover. We then rely on a dependent other as a nature. But we may want to have an interaction with this species. How is it helping me? What does it mean? What am I encountering with the nature? A facilitating of a group process there would be very um, affordable, where you don't have a professional setup, but you have an active sense of discovering and knowing. You have an active sense of your cognitive brain is working for you, that you're not.
Also, I feel it is a large part of normalizing therapy and therapy process, and also talking about our problems. When you do it in a group, like through psychodrama, I realized how powerful the group work is. Like you find similar stories in the group when you share your story, and you see you are not alone, and that kind of allows that let's talk process to get accelerate, vis-a-vis when you sit in a therapy room alone with a therapist, then you have to find out, okay, who is the other person I can go out and talk. But here when you do it in a group, it becomes so easy, and then when you go out of the group also, you will be it'll be easier for you to find that tribe
Yeah.
because you've done it in the group.
I think these are the ways we can make it uh, accessible for people.
So, who can call themselves as a therapist?
See, there are multiple perspectives for this as well. If you look at in a medical model, those who have finished their psychiatry and who have done their clinical psychology, they call themselves as psychologist, clinical psychologist, and who's done MPhil will call them as psychotherapist. In transaction analysis, who's done their qualification, CTA psychotherapy, call themselves a psychotherapist with TA practice. In India, there is no specific council for a
Government.
psychotherapist.
Yeah. That's a drawback, right?
That's a drawback, and that it might emerge also. We don't know. But we do have a recent regulation that has come as a part of allied health science again, who's licensed under RCI for a clinical purpose. But counseling psychologists, psychotherapists of this, they don't have really a regulation.
Mm.
There are people who've done a lot of skilled learning after MSc psychology. They've learned psychodrama, they've learned transaction analysis, they've learned many other skills, and they're very good at their work. Who work in collaboration with the psychiatrist and clinical psychologist as a team, um, are facing some identity crisis. How to, you know, call ourselves? What do I call about my work that I'm
True.
doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't have a legal binding, so to
I
say.
have the qualification and skills, but I don't know legally where to put myself into, where do I fit?
Yeah,
And for me, when I look at psychotherapy from a humanistic, from an existential point of view, um, or a radical point of view, it is a combination of both science and social. And you say transaction analysis is social psychology. That is what Eric Berne said.
yeah, agree.
And if you say social psychology, it is really a holistic view. What's going on inside of you, what's going on outside of you. What happens inside of me that disturbs the outside relationship?
Mm.
What happens outside of me that disturbs my inside? One cannot live without the other.
Mm.
That is why psychology is the science of mind.
Mm.
Sociology is the science of external,
Mm.
right? The society. So it's
Mm.
interpersonal and intrapsychic
Yeah.
or systemic.
Mm.
So in transaction, we are learning so much. But where do we identify ourselves as?
Mm.
We identify ourselves as coming from a medical model, or coming from a allied health science model, or coming from a psychotherapy model or a humanistic model. We just
Mm.
don't.
Mm.
But more than that, more than our identity, how would a layman or a public seek help from us? What do they really look for? So I would say any person who is seeking therapy needs to inquire therapists who are in supervisions, who are in therapy by themselves.
You mean this the therapist should be under supervision and therapy at the same time
Absolutely.
while giving therapy to others?
Absolutely.
Do you think that it is great to share this information with the clients also?
Absolutely. And I do share about it.
Mm.
It's not because it is not that I have dealt with all my problems and I'm fully ready now to deal with you. While I'm dealing with you, I'm encountering my own process because you have given me a gift of, oh my God, this part of me is also so, which I
Mm.
haven't discovered yet.
Mm.
So definitely having a therapist for a therapist is so important, along with the supervisor. So if these two are in place, I think that therapist is doing an ethical responsibility to the client.
So if you're saying these two are the critical information that the client should ask the therapist, that are you under supervision and are you under therapy?
Yeah, do you have therapists for yourself? And do you have a supervisor? And also to see how much we are connected in
Yeah.
therapy. Are we connecting?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I feeling safe enough? Is
Two
there
things comes to my mind that, one is clients talking about that I want to be seen, I want to be heard. And one of somebody told me recently that मुझे ज्ञान नहीं चाहिए. So
yeah,
there is a myth also when layman comes to therapy that Uh, so will you tell me to breathe how many times I should do this and how many times I like? No, it doesn't come across as the red, yellow, blue pill. Um, it's not like that. It's way beyond looking at that as a piece of structure that you can follow. It's not like that. And do you think it's easy to translate this information, that it is not like what you go to a medical professional? Here it is different.
Yeah, see, it is a teamwork.
Mm,
Sometimes you will definitely need a medical intervention.
mm,
And that is when you refer this client, assess them clinically through a clinical psychologist, and then
mm,
refer them to the psychiatrist when there is an intense need for that,
mm.
where the person is really not able to function, uh, and not able to be in the realistic, test the reality of my life. Like, I am in my house. I'm not even experiencing that I'm living in my house. I'm so escalated and gone all over the place. I don't have control over me. Yes, definitely you need that support. But while you are dysfunctional, you're not able to function, but you know that you are in your house and you know that you're not able to manage your emotions. You know that you're talking some way that you don't think you're supposed to talk. You know that there is something that's happening to me while I'm working. So will you know
How
that?
does these things manifest when you're saying something is happening to me? Or what are the indications or manifestations?
So for example, let me say a simple example of a client who came to me who said, um, "See, I know I have a lot of issues. I thought I can manage them. But when I'm grooming my children, I'm seeing myself not able to manage my emotion. I simply escalate my aggression.
Mm,
Or I end up crying for unwantedly, I cry.
mm,
I don't want this to impact my children."
mm,
So that means I know that I am impacting my children. I
mm,
have some awareness, so
mm,
which means I am my thinking ability in the here and now is active,
mm,
that I am not able to regulate my emotion.
mm.
So when the person can verify what's going on inside of them, that is when they seek therapist.
And therapy. So there are two categories. What I'm hearing is that one is the severe mental illness, which is schizophrenia, bipolar, clinical depression. Another is in your day-to-day life when you struggle with doing the work that you have to do in a way which is like you feel that you are engaging and you are okay doing it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So simple way of looking at it. For example, there are a lot of things happening at home, and you don't have an opportunity to express that I don't like for some reasons. It could be the external reason, or internally I am imposing myself that I cannot express. Right? For example, to say that no, I don't want to do this particular activity that you're telling me to do. I'm not ready for that. I'm not able to voice that. So if that
mm,
consistently happen in a house for this person, and the coping mechanism is to withdraw,
mm,
slowly I stop talking, then I start not eating, then I start not sleeping, and then I start crying. I am entering into the phase of depression
mm,
because my active aggression that's inside of me is not expressed. What happens, which has started as a need to express, is not done. It has gone into a space of dysfunction, and then eventually it can go into a space of pathology.
mm. If not treated at right time.
If not become aware of right time. Now there is so much awareness that I don't know why I feel depressed. That's a common
Mm,
word now.
mm,
So people go into therapy and ask, what's happening to me? That,
mm,
like one of my client, she said, I don't know. Today, full day I was sleeping. I don't know what happened to me.
Mm.
I was just listening. I was not saying anything. And then finally, client said, this my boss was saying so many things I didn't like. Da, da, da. I said, I'm hearing you being very disappointed. Is it what you're saying? She said, yeah, I'm disappointed. And then went on saying about the boss. And then she said, I'm really angry at him. Oh, I didn't realize I was so angry at him. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, that I've also seen that people don't realize that there's so much anger that they're hiding, and that comes out in kind of conversations and relationships, which kind of harm the relationships, and then you end up into trouble or a fight, and then no sleep, lose your appetite, and kind of dysfunctional in various areas in day-to-day life.
She said, oh my God. So because of this anger, I slept the whole day.
Mm.
Yeah. So these are certain issues which comes to therapy, anxiety issues, relationship issues, depression issues. They all come to therapy. Also, personality disorders and all of them in liaising with the psychiatrist and clinical psychologist. You work together in psychotherapy. So it's a teamwork thing.
What are the common themes that you see emerging in different age categories um, when people come to take therapy? If we
It
talk about today's world,
predominantly what I have seen is anxiety is the most prominent issue that I'm
I
seeing
think anxiety is across age, right?
across age.
Mm.
Depression is the next one.
Mm.
Uh, Borderline personality disorders
Mm.
are increasing in number, is what
I
I'm
also see relationship issues,
relationship issues, conflicts.
parenting conflicts.
Yeah, and parents having a different belief system and children wanting a different system because so much of influence from the world. Parent not able to cope up with the present world, how it is going, the fast world, the
And also men and women differently having their own issues.
yeah, and there is a traditional way of saying it, disposable
Mm.
culture,
Mm.
where everything is disposable.
Mm. You can move on.
Yeah. So yeah, these are the ways people talk.
Mm. Of course, I think also teenagers have their own concerns. Young adults have their own issues. I also see a lot of people who are struggling in terms of work culture when they have to work in a team. How they are struggling in group work, and in their workspaces, that they struggle with the boss or with the colleague, and that also manifests in a lot of issues in day
Right.
to day life.
Right.
Okay, so the next question is, does
And
one stop?
there is also this, which I saw is grandiose or
Yeah,
maximized, that you
yeah,
should always be happy.
yeah. That's the positive psychology
And
approach.
I feel sometimes it's really toxic.
Yes,
We
agreed.
need to learn to be realistic sometimes.
Yes, you can be sad, you can be mad, you can be angry.
Yeah,
Uh,
you cannot have an illusion that you are all the time happy, you're consistent in all the time consistent in what you're doing. It's not true. Everybody goes through this waves of things, not in a sporadic way or
and even a therapist, because I remember somebody told me once that you're a therapist, you're a counselor, and still you can get angry.
yeah. So I think we need to accept the reality of life,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
disappointments, the hardships that
And you
come.
don't have to deal with them always in a correct way or
Yeah, and
in
there's
a
no
specific
perfect
way.
way of living our lives.
Yeah.
Uh, and
It's
there's no
very personal.
perfect and there's no perfect way of how your house has to be, how your life has to be. There's no rule books.
How you have to be as a mother, how you have to be as a wife, how you have to be as a son, or how you have to be a father. People are moving around with a template and then judge each other, self and also others.
Yeah, and I think that is the worst thing that we're doing to ourselves.
Yeah. I feel more of these issues are coming out of this kind of culture, which is like you only talk about being happy and positive, and
Yeah.
there's no room for other feelings around.
Somewhere I see there is a spectrum here. On the one
Yeah.
hand, completely happiness, you need that. On the other
Yeah.
hand, there's a lot of violence and domestic
I-
issues and people not being aware and uh,
Mm.
not owning, sacrificing themselves so much that they lose themselves. Somewhere not in a position to come in between and look at,
Yeah.
what is bothering myself? How can I be myself with you?
So, coming to the last part of this conversation, does is it okay to say that when can you stop therapy, or do you stop therapy at some point, or how does that work?
Of course, that is very important to know when to stop therapy. Depends on the kind of issues clients bring in and also the client's support system. Sometimes, after knowing something, say, okay, I have the support system, I can go and manage myself. And they may terminate the contract when they feel they're ready to face it. And some of them take years of therapy saying that I need the support until I manage it outside world. That is also there. So it really depends on the issue that they have brought. In TA, we call it as contracting or coming into agreement,
Mm,
not a clear contract that I'm coming to change this and I get that change.
mm,
I might have come saying that I'm really anxious, but I'm dealing with anxiety better now. So I think I'm in a good space to terminate, and they
mm.
terminate. And they come back when they want to come back. So there is
Yeah,
hard and fast rule. Um, this has to go, then there's an ideal destination out there that I will reach. And then after that, I can terminate therapy. And, thinking about that destination, you will be anxious again in therapy. Okay, I didn't
yeah,
reach
yeah.
that.
Okay. So, any last words that you would like to end this conversation with?
I would say I don't feel like saying live your life in a better way because world is really struggling through a lot of issues. Um, Environmental issues, wars, oppressions, discriminations, privileges and underprivileges, so many issues. Um, while we are accounting for all this, I my only word of closing would be that account for yourself and your environment
Mm,
while you're living your life. If I am happy, I would want the trees and plants and my neighbors around me to be also in a comfortable place. And when I'm saying happy, it doesn't come under the quote happy. That when I feel content in my life, at least I would want to share a part of me to my neighborhood, to see the peace and things going. So that can pass on to people. I think that is when the world can be a better place.
true, true. And as you said that I'm happy, I had a little bit of an anxiety in me that what is this definition of being happy also?
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, that's for another conversation. My uh, intention is that I'm very happy that we're doing this, and I'm looking forward for many such conversations together, and also others to join in,
yeah,
so that we can expand this community and make it larger for everybody to participate and you
yeah,
know put themselves forward and get seen, get heard, whether it is therapists or clients or society at large.
yeah.
So let's talk and make this place a better place to live together.
Yes, thank you so much, Shaitali, for initiating this Let's Talk. And
Thank you. Let's
I
keep talking.
enjoyed, yeah, I enjoyed today. Yeah, let's see what comes ahead of us.
Yeah, curious and happy to be there. Thank you.
Bye bye.